The world of Bleach is miserable. Humans live in ignorance about their reality. Their world is equally a field for wandering souls. Regretful and sad spirits roam and are often devoured by monsters. Upon death, souls are either recycled, reincarnated, devoured, or mangled into hollows. Soul Society is a messed up station between life and death, governed by controllers and balances that see souls as foundational resources to moderate and use to maintain balance and a semblance of order. It's the furthest place from heaven. Souls mostly live in poverty, or if they're lucky enough to not end up in one of the most dangerous and criminal-filled districts, then they just wait to die, get rebirthed as new humans, and eventually forget their past once again. And then there is Hueco Mundo, which, aside from hell, is the most messed up place in Bleach's cosmology. The name Hueco Mundo, empty world, says it all. It's a place devoid of meaning, inhabited by beings mostly devoid of hearts, conscience, and fulfillment. Whether it's the monsters that lack awareness and are driven by a primal and endless hunger to consume souls, or the ones that ascend and become more human-like, but are still hollow from within, spiritually and literally, living a meaningless existence with nothing to look forward to, no rest or solitude in their loneliness. So, what are hollows in the first place? Souls of the deceased, called pluses, exist in the human world. If a plus doesn't pass on to Soul Society, they undergo encroachment, which involves the erosion of their chain of fate, which connects them to their physical body. As the chain of fate erodes, the plus experiences pain and transforms into a hollow. The final erosion of the chain results in a hole in the chest where the heart used to be. The soul's body disperses and reforms into a hollow, complete with a mask. They lose their identity and most, if not all, of their memory and become mindless beasts. Hollows are born when a soul lingers in the human world without proper guidance. It becomes vulnerable to negative emotions like despair and regrets, which starts the encroachment process. They stay in the human world because they are too attached or too regretful about something or sometimes someone. They usually end up killing that someone because they lose themselves and lose control because they're simply too obsessed, too hungry, too empty. The hollow hole in their chest and mask represents their lost heart and individuality. They are driven by instinct and a desire to consume souls, both human and spiritual. Some powerful hollows retain intelligence and vary when it comes to the degree of consciousness and awareness they have. However, all of them are either too hungry, too aggressive, or too hollow. Hollows come in various forms and various levels of strength and intelligence. There are the basic and normal hollows, and there is everything that comes after that. In the Bleach universe, Menos are a classification of powerful hollows that have evolved beyond basic hollow forms. They are further divided into three types: Gillians, Adjucius, and Vastolords in ascending order of power. Each type represents a stage in the evolution of a hollow that has consumed a large number of souls, with Vastolord being the rarest and most powerful type of hollow. Gillians, also known as Menos Grande, are the most basic and abundant type of Menos. Gillians are large, hulking creatures formed when numerous hollows merge after consuming a large number of souls. They are relatively slow and lack intelligence, often serving as foot soldiers in large numbers. Adjucius is an intermediate stage of Menos evolution. Adjucius are smaller and more intelligent than Gillians, with unique appearances and a greater degree of individuality. They are formed when a single hollow's personality dominates the Gillian and begins to consume other Gillians and even other Adjucius. Vastolord is the rarest and most powerful type of Menos. Vastolords possess immense power and are often humanoid in appearance. They are incredibly rare, with only a small number believed to exist. Among all of the types of hollows and Menos, Arrancars can exist. Simply, Arrancars are just hollows that removed most of their masks and gained Shinigami-like powers. Some of them are naturally born and some are created and evolved with the help of the Hogyoku. The more an Arrancar looks like a human, the smarter they are, and the more they look like a hollow, the dumber and less conscious they are. An stigma is the fragment left from their masks. It's a crest for them, as per the name. Arrancars have Saketsu as well, the area on a Shinigami's body that corresponds to the chain of fate in a normal soul. It's the center of spiritual power for Shinigamis. Remember when Ichigo lost his power after Byakuya hit him in that specific area? The same can be done to Arrancars. They lose powers and their masks, their hearts. We'll talk about Arrancars more later on, so for now let's go over the hollow world they all inhabit. Hueco Mundo is a dimension in the Bleach universe, primarily inhabited by hollows and Arrancars. It's depicted as a desolate, endless white desert. It's one of the 3 planes of existence in the Bleach universe, alongside the human world and soul society. The atmosphere is rich in reishi, which allows most hollows to survive even without consuming souls. In fact, the sand in Hueco Mundo is the remains of a giant Menos Grande that appeared millions of years ago and threatened the universe until the Soul King appeared and killed it. The Gillen was turned into the sand of Reishi that would become Hueco Mundo. This event happened before the creation of Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and the human world. The Soul King's actions were driven by the need to stabilize the world and prevent chaos caused by the continuous formation of hollows and Menos Grandes. In the original state of the verse, millions of years ago. Later on, Hueco Mundo was created as one of the 3 worlds, along with Soul Society and the human world. Hueco Mundo exists between the other 2 worlds and is said to act as a sort of lid for hell. The dimension is visually striking, featuring a barren, desert-like landscape under a perpetually dark sky, with quartz-like mineral formations resembling trees and a moon with an opposite lunar cycle to that of Earth. Hueco Mundo is a place no one would want to spend a day, let alone eternity. It is a crucible of loneliness and loss, where both physical and metaphysical humanity has been dissolved from souls. For one hollow, enemy is so intense that he divides himself into 2 beings just to avoid it. In Hueco Mundo, hollows have the burden of loneliness and damnation that will not end until they die by ceasing to exist, the worst fate of all. The dangers of the wild are ever present in the form of inadequate shelter and the threat of being consumed by each other. Either their souls are cleansed by a Shinigami and they can return to a soul that goes to Soul Society, or they can be destroyed forever by the Quincy's, falling off the wheel of life by becoming nothing. It's the opposite goal of attaining enlightenment and becoming a consciousness that is one with everything, like the many themes this world is built around and within. Hueco Mundo is the empty world, exactly what the meaning of that name implies. Hueco Mundo was once ruled by the undisputed king of the Hollows, Baragan Louis Zanban, who Aizen coercively deposed to reterritorialize the kingdom of the dead as his new base of operations. Later on, ruled over for a short period of time by Haribel, who was the strongest espada who survived, and notably one of the few with a sense of camaraderie and connection to her followers, who was then removed from rule by the Quincy's and Yuhabah, who went on a spree of purging hollows and removing as much of them from existence. The land is unstable and empty and meaningless. In Hueco Mundo, Las Noches, the nights, is where the ruler holds court. Aizen builds a castle there that looks like white Pueblo towers under a dome. Within the dome, he erects a false sky to bring daylight to the eternally dark realm. The castle houses the Espada and Arrancar, all high-level hollows that are under Aizen's rule and command. Hueco Mundo is primarily influenced by Mexican death cults and folklore, the most obvious of which is the iconic hollow mask, resembling the papier-mâché masks worn on Dia de los Muertos. Importantly, Hueco Mundo and its capital, Las Noches, resemble the Mayan underworld known as Xibalba, an eternally dark desert kingdom with hundreds of individually built structures and spires, not unlike the cylindrical marble towers spread throughout the wasteland of Kubo's Hueco Mundo. In Xibalba, demons judge the dead, either by duels or by the sacrificial rites of Ulama, the Mesoamerican ball game in which the stakes are very high. The winner lives in eternal peace and the loser suffers in the dark deserts. Like Xibalba, Hueco Mundo is also a horrifying Darwinian hell. Here, hollows hunt and consume each other until they attain a highly developed humanoid state, traumatized by the eternal experience of their own crushing spiritual alienation. Like the beast-like demons in Xibalba, hollows function solely as killing machines, consuming in excess and tormenting the weak for the sole purpose of growing beyond their existential baseline. The world of Bleach as a whole draws heavily from Buddhist concepts, particularly the cycle of reincarnation, samsara, and the 6 realms of existence. The series presents a world where souls are reborn after death, with their experiences in the afterlife potentially influencing their next one. Hollows are depicted as spirits trapped in a cycle of suffering and hunger, similar to the preta, hungry ghosts in Buddhist cosmology. And those preta have their own realm, much like Hueco Mundo, called the Preta realm. As an extension, the other realms of existence in Bleach can be linked to the other 5 in the Samsara. Hell is Naraka, the Hell realm. Kamamura's clan hints at the existence of the corresponding animal realm, but one theory of mine is that Las Noches, the castle within Hueco Mundo, might just be the animal realm of this world, with all of the animal inspirations and the imagery of the Arrancars, who transcended the average mindless hollows and gained aspects of humanity along with animal attributes, keeping in mind that human is also an animal himself. They were all subjugated and domesticated by Aizen. Numerous types of hollows live in Hueco Mundo, all of whom lust to devour souls. They all have animal traits, but one that can behave and follow rules get to live in Aizen's castle. The world of living is clearly the human realm. Van den Dijk is most likely the Ashura realm, and Soul Society is the Deva realm. In many interpretations, the Ashura realm and the Deva realm are considered opposites, just like the Quincy and Shinigami's rivalry and opposition. Soul Society is where most of the Buddhist influence and themes can be found. The culture, the system, the names, vibes, and traditions, they are mostly Japanese and Asian inspired. Hueco Mundo is obviously inspired aesthetically and linguistically by Spanish and Latin cultures. Kubo said he uses Spanish in the names of things related to hollows and Arrancars because he finds the language sound bewitching and mellow, and it suits their passionate and enthusiastic nature. For someone that can hide a whole esoteric passage about enlightenment in one portion of a character's name through kanji that leads to a lot of references and hidden secrets, he can also just name things for the vibes. For example, Grimshaw and Ulquiorra are named after 2 of his favorite architects, Nicolas Grimshaw and Patricia Urquiola. Why is Kubo a fan of architects? The Spanish names and influence extends to the show's soundtracks as well, along with the German lyrics and orchestras of the Quincy's, who are associated with the German language and culture due to key reasons: to symbolize a foreign, non-Japanese influence, to reflect the cold and methodical nature of their fighting style, and to draw parallels from historical German groups like the Teutonic Knights and various other religious and military symbols and aspects. Kubo mentioned that he would like to base something around the French language in the future, and the only candidate left in Bleach's cosmology is the Hell realm. Quite lore accurate if you ask me. Going back to the Arrancars, there are more classifications applied to them. ones decided by Sosuke Aizen after he took over and created his own army of them. This classification follows a numerical order for the name of these Arrancars, the Numeros. Numbers 11 to 100 are Arrancars that compete to rise in rank and possibly get promoted to become Espada themselves. These are often servants and guards or mostly followers of the Espada, called the Fracciones. Each Espada has the power and the right to choose his own Fracciones. Grimmjow has loyal followers that follow his orders above even Aizen's, since they knew each other since they were Jushas and sacrificed parts of themselves to Grimmjow so he can grow stronger and lead them. These are some of the strongest and oldest Numeros, since the Numeros from 11 to 100 are ranked based on age and not strength. Grimmjow's Fracciones are Diroy Rinker, Ilfort Grants, Nakim Grindina, Edrad Leones, and Shaolang Kufang. These are numbers 16, 15, 14, 13, and 11, respectively, with Shaolang being the oldest non-Espada Arrancar. Haribel has her Tres Bestias, Spanish for 3 beasts, but my headcanon always reads it as 3 besties, so we'll go with that. These are Emulu Apache, Francesca Milarose, and Sian Son Son. Noitora has 1 Fracciones, and that's Testra Lindocros. Just like Stark and Linionets, although that's a really special case, since she's a fragment of his soul. There is Pesce and Dondo Chaka, who were loyal followers of Neliel and still act as her guardians and companions when she was rendered to a child. Baragan also has his own set of followers, and those include Nirge Pardwok, Giovega, Choneng Pao, Findor Casius, Charlotte Shuleon, and Abirama Redder. One thing that is consistent in Bleach is the cool sounding names, no matter how major or minor a character is, especially paired with Kubo's insane character design quality and stylized art style. Hueco Mundo may be empty, hollow, and grim, but they for sure got swag. All Numeros aspire to try and grow powerful enough to become Espada themselves. There are only 10 seats for the Espada, and they themselves can still be demoted and replaced, seen as when Grimmjow loses his hand and is replaced by Lupi. He earned his seat back after getting his hand, his full power, and killing Lupi to retake the number 6. Espada that lose their places are called Privaron Espada, simply previous Espada in Spanish. These get 3-digit numbers, unlike other Numeros. Suruchi Sandervici, Gantenbain Mosqueda, and arguably the greatest Arrancar in history, Dordoni Alessandro del Socasio. The Espada, meaning the swords, are the strongest Arrancars in Hueco Mundo. They consist of some of the most powerful, naturally born Vasto Lords who evolved to that level without the help of the Hogyoku, or ones that evolved with its help beyond most other naturally born Espada. The Espada are not ranked based on age like the Numeros, neither are they ranked based on strength like most people think. They are ranked and numbered based on how much Reiryoku they have, simply the amount of spiritual power. Hollows and Arrancar masks are their hearts. They shield them from the world and lock away their egos and hide their shame. Aizen's army is made of Arrancars that he subjugates and help evolve further. Humans are the opposite of Hollows, and Vizards are the opposite of Arrancar. Ones remove their masks to gain Shinigami-like powers, and the others are Shinigami that gain a mask and a Hollow-like power. Of course, Aizen causes all of this, be it the Vizards, indirectly Ichigo, and Tosen, or even the opposite of that, since he accelerated the Arrancar's evolution through the use of the Hogyoku. Just like Shinigami Zanpakuto, Arrancar's abilities are reflections of themselves that align with their themes and motives, being even more grounded than Shinigami, since each Arrancar has a specific animal theme, and on top of that, in the case of the Espada, each of them represents a specific aspect of death. Shinigami manifest their Zanpakuto spirit by using an Asauchi as a medium. They imprint their soul on it, spend time with it, and embrace it in order to develop. However, Arrancar Zanpakuto are born with them. It's said that when their masks break, the broken fragment turns into their Zanpakuto, so it's a literal extension of their heart and soul. The Arrancars Zanpakuto locks away their spiritual power, and when they release it, it doesn't grant them some new ability, but rather unleashes their true hollow power and their form. They go back to a previous version of themselves. So not exactly like Bankai, but not too different either. The Shinigami Zanpakuto is used as a way to manifest their inner power into the outer world. Their Zanpakuto spirit is not inside of the sword, but in the Shinigami's inner world. The blade is just a medium for that. Arrancars, however, use the resurrection to unleash their full power and assimilate with their sword. They essentially become complete. The sword is not merely discarded, but reintegrated into their being as they revert to a form closer to their hollow origins. And at last, let's talk about the espada, the swords of Aizen, the ones on top of the voracious and hollow food chain. Each espada represents an aspect of death, and that, along with their powers and symbolism, says a lot about the characters and their story. Yami is the simplest and most straightforward espada. His aspect of death is that of rage. Simply, he grows stronger the angrier he gets, growing large in size and changing form very often. He is the only espada that has two numbers 10 and 0. He has the most Ryoku among all the espada. Not any clear animal theme for him, since it's hard to pin down what exactly he is with the many forms he has. The main first resurrection looks like a centipede, possibly a scolopendra, though a dinosaur or a giant ape are also viable options because of his other form. His primary ability is the anger-induced physical augmentation, when his power, strength, and physical form grow exponentially with his rage, allowing him to store immense spiritual energy and increase his size. As the Espada Zero, he possesses incredible brute strength, enhanced Hero, the skin hardening, and can fire devastating Zero and Bala blasts. He also has the ability to use Gonzui, a unique suction ability to absorb the souls of weaker beings, and can maintain his immense power by sleeping and eating, something that centipedes do. He is the simplest and most honest depiction of what an espada is, a being that's powerful enough to do what he pleases. While being hollow and empty of meaning, unlike the others, he does not have any profound yearning to fill the hole in his existence with meaning. He just indulges in his pleasures and wears his aggression and strength with pride. He fights a lot. In fact, Yami is the espada that fights the most out of all the hollows, not just espada. Whether that's the time he spends fighting or the amount of people he fights. He and Ulquiorra are the two first espada we get to see, and Kubo did say he was going with a 7 deadly sins theme for them, but went on to go for 10 instead of 7. Most likely he introduced Yami and Ulquiorra with the intention of having them embody wrath and sloth, which their introduction does establish very well, with Yami simply getting angry and Ulquiorra not doing anything at all. He most likely doubled down on rage for Yami, but took sloth away from Ulquiorra and just gave it to Stark. Most of the other deadly sins are still present as well. Espada number 9, Aroniro Arurueri, is the representation of greed. His Zanpakuto's ability is receiving the Reiatsu and abilities of all of the hollows he consumes. His Zanpakuto is called Glottoneria. It's an amalgamation of tentacles with a mouth, a feature that ties into the themes of consumption. Aroniro's ability to absorb and gain the powers of others is a direct manifestation of his greedy nature. He consumed Metastasia, the hollow that fused with Kai and Shiba to acquire Kai's abilities and appearance. He might represent bacteria, which produces by splitting into two. Aroniro Aranweri is weak to sunlight and it nullifies his abilities and exposes his true form. And direct sunlight can kill many types of bacteria by damaging their DNA, making them unable to reproduce and survive. His ability is devouring hollows and taking their powers. He is the only Gillian to be an espada. Gillians are the weakest class of Menos. His abilities are what makes him strong enough to be espada. Unlike others, he does not have a human form, something all high-level Menos have because he's a Gillian. He just greedily steals one and wears it. His resurrection unleashes every hollow he's devoured, all 30,000 of them. He lives to devour, survives to devour, and fights to devour. He's both the sin of greed and gluttony. Zanpakuto Gantz is the mad scientist. He believes he is the perfect being, the ultimate life form, clashing ideals with the other mad scientist of this world. Zanpakuto can possess and control living things. He can use hollow voodoo and hurt people that way, and ultimately he can impregnate himself into someone else to be reborn whenever he needs to, believing it's a form of immortality. It's madness. His animal form can either be that of a butterfly. His overall form, especially the wings he gains in his resurrection, represents a metamorphosis of a kind, a crucial aspect of his scientific research and pursuit of perfection. However, his parasitic nature, evidenced by his invasive abilities and his practice of copying others' cells for reproduction, aligns with the invasive nature of parasitic worms, along with his ability to reproduce asexually through cellular manipulation, creating artificial menos and fraction like Roca Paramia, and his parasitical immortality mirrors the life cycles and reproductive methods of certain sea anemones and the immortal jellyfish, or maybe some form of helminth, which is a type of parasitic worm that can live in or on a host organism to acquire nutrients and shelter. Even a helminth's lower half looks like Sile's dress. Basically, his abilities are all based on parasitism, controlling organs, using hosts for birth, replicating, etc. He feels like a mix of multiple animals and life forms, which kinda fits him. He's the mad scientist after all, going to extremes to accomplish whatever experiment and next step of evolution that leads him to his fake perfection. Zomari's symbolism revolves around the themes of control, intoxication, and monastic devotion, reflecting in his bewitching eyes power, which allows him to take sovereignty over everything he sees. His connection to witchcraft, monastic imagery, and the third eye concept further emphasizes his ability to monitor, command, and enforce a blind devotion to him or his devotion to Aizen, aligning with his aspect of death, that of intoxication, which is personified by his unwavering and unquestioning devotion to Sosuke Aizen. His focus on the goal of Aizen's cause can be seen as a form of intoxicating zeal. Zomari's hands are clasped in prayer after releasing his Zanpakuto, and the Sangha in its name suggests a monk-like quality despite his destructive powers. The position of the eyes on his body is similar to the third eye in Tantra meditation, representing the center of command and the ability to know or follow. His animal form is most likely a sea urchin or a sea anemone. In this form, his body becomes covered in numerous eyes, similar to the spikes on a sea urchin's body. His resurrection is named after a Sangha, which is a community of Buddhist monks, and with a resurrection design inspired by Hindu-rooted traditions of the rotational faces of a higher being, a trend of depicting the many-faced Buddha. I personally would have loved to see more of Zomari. Sadly, he was very irrelevant in the story. While he was a perfect vessel for a lot of the themes and ideas in Bleach that Kubo could have explored through his presence and a more important role in the story. And not just the religious and Buddhist aspects, along with the notion of Arrancars as advanced hollows, the moral ambiguity between hollows and Shinigami, the natural pursuit of enlightenment for all souls stuck in the cycle, and the Arrancars' connection to Aizen himself. After all of the Espada being aspects of death are reflections of Aizen's own nature and ideology. The next aspect of death is destruction, and it belongs to the Jaguar King of the Deadlands, Grimjo Jagerjak. It very clearly manifests in his aggressive combat style and ruthless pursuit of power. He also symbolizes a kingly desire for individual power, a king without a kingdom, who seeks to assert his own superiority and survive by consuming and dominating others. His personality and fighting style embody the core concept of destruction, characterized by a violent and almost savage approach to battle, reinforcing the idea of endless pursuit of growth all Hallows have. We see Grimmjow gradually grow as an Adjucius, meeting his Fracciones who had all stagnated in growth, offering him their power, parts of their bodies and their loyalty, uniting under his strength and his rule. Grimmjow constantly seeks to impose himself as a king, a notion tied to his drive for immense power and a position of ultimate strength. He calls himself a king. He is driven by the need to preserve and affirm his own individuality, casting aside others as shadows and rejecting the idea of remaining subservient. Seen as how he acts without orders and bump heads with those that follow rules and reject chaos. Grimmjow never bends his knee fully, even if he accepts to follow someone else. Despite his desire for kingship, his path is ultimately isolating, as he believes true survival requires him to stand alone, ultimately making him a lonely ruler. His followers all die because of his selfish decisions, and not a single thought or feeling is expressed once they are gone. They were just weak to survive. That's all there is to it. The Arrancars invasions and Hueco Mundo arcs center around the line between Hallows and humans, and the values each stand for and the gray areas where they intersect. We learn about the progression of Menos, Arrancars, and Espada. We get introduced to Vizards, which are the reverse Arrancars, and most important of all is the growth of the main vessel of every idea in the story. Kurosaki Ichigo, who has to learn and accept and understand the hollow side of him, willingly wearing the mask and everything that comes with it. Grimmjow acts as a destructive obstacle for Ichigo to overcome. They fight not once, not twice, but 3 different times, clashing not in ideas, but in natures. Speaking of nature, remember Zangetsu's iconic speech about who is the king and who is the horse and the difference between them. Instinct to fight, willingness to do so, and actually enjoying the act of fighting is an idea Ichigo learns very thoroughly. Zangetsu is the manifested spirit of Ichigo's Zanpakuto, as well as his inner hollow. Between the fights with Grimmjow, he forces him to confront that part of fighting. When Ichigo fights Dordoni, his naive heroic tendencies and ideals are put to questioning, even after he accepts his hollow power, and ultimately he is challenged through meaning and philosophy, not the act of fighting, but the reason to fight, something his other Zangetsu has taught him. A duality this important in the story is crushed and destroyed first by the Hollow of Destruction himself, the king of the jungle, whose animal form is that of a jaguar. Grimmjow's resurrection is called Panthera, and yes, the jaguar itself is a distinct species within the genus Panthera, which also includes other big cats like lions, tigers, and leopards. So jaguar and panther aren't 2 different animals. Since we're talking about animals, isn't Grimmjow the king? He's not the lion though, but rather a jaguar. Is this some ironic play on his perceived persona? Or is there more to it, knowing that the jaguar is actually considered the king of the jungle in South America due to its status as the largest big cat in the Americas? Also, lions mostly live in savannas. Speaking of South America, Spanish is the most spoken language in that continent. It's also the language used for names, etymology, and aesthetic of Hueco Mundo and the Espada. So maybe there is more indirect accuracy to the king statement. The panther is generally a symbol of ferocity, aggressiveness, and power. The panthers are also mostly solitary, being more comfortable by themselves, although they associate with others as well. Grimmjow's panther jaguar form is a reference to his personal journey and the general symbolism of panthers and tigers in various mythologies, such as aggression, power, and a solitary nature. The only thing I'm upset about in regards to his resurrection is that he loses his iconic jawbone stigma. Why, Kuba? Why? His name is Grimmjow. He needs the jaw. It's the coolest thing ever. Now he's just Grim forehead bone. Speaking of cool stigmas, the Quinto Espada, Noitora Girga, who embodies despair, the loss of all hope, and a sense of futility. His dynamic with Neliel highlights that, as her power and strength initially caused him an inferiority complex, leading to a desperate and honorable attack to win. Noitora's deep-seated belief that the world was hopeless and the only purpose was to fight to the death reflects that despair and the futility of his existence. His blatant sexism and hatred for weakness is a coping mechanism to deal with his own feelings of inferiority. His willingness to attack an already exhausted opponent, attack behind someone's back, and harm his own subordinate Tesla for helping him demonstrates a cowardly aspect of his personality, which stems from his feelings of insecurity. He believes in crushing opponents by any means necessary, reflecting a distorted view of power and fairness born from his inner despair, a justification for violence. His resurrection form incorporates elements of a praying mantis, a predator that is often seen as a symbol of warfare and aggression. The praying mantis can also regrow his limbs, which is Noitora's main ability, his high-speed regeneration. The crescent moon on his headpiece and his weapon is an interesting ironic symbol, because the crescent moon symbolizes new beginnings, hope, and the cycles of life due to its growing phase, and it represents growth towards wholeness, the opposite of despair. But remember, the moon in Hueco Mundo is different. It is always the opposite of the lunar cycle in the human world. While it is always night in Hueco Mundo, its moon reflects light and shows phases. Albeit with a reversed cycle compared to the human world, it creates the unchanging night sky. Hueco Mundo is a separate dimension from the human world with different environmental and celestial rules, including the lunar cycle. So perhaps it does not represent hope here, but rather despair. And there is an espada that visually and thematically matches both symbols. His resurrection is Santa Teresa, which literally translates to Saint Teresa. There isn't a specific saint named Teresa that I could find some connection or reference to. However, there have been multiple throughout history. More importantly is that the phrase can also refer to the praying mantis, known as Santa Teresa in Spanish due to its posture resembling prayer. In Japanese, the praying mantis is known as kamakiri, where kama can mean a scythe or a sickle, just like Noitora's unique Zanpakuto. Even more, the praying mantis is often associated with female superiority in Western culture due to the tendency of the female mantis to eat the male mantis after mating, a possibly twisted reference to his dissatisfaction with female superiority or being constantly inferior in strength to a female. The kanji of his resurrection reads like crying praying mantis, one full of despair. However, it's only when he meets true and unfiltered violence that he learns the real meaning of despair for himself. When he is overpowered mentally, physically, and shit, even thematically, as Zaraki simply crushes him. The difference between loving the act of fighting itself versus loving winning. Noitora says he wants to die, but he gains more arms and fights better in order to survive. He is proud of his hero, the defensive toughness of the skin, yet he feels fear when it's broken through. He regenerates and heals himself. He does not really wish to die. His pursuit of strength and desire for battle comes to a halt when confronting Zaraki, who is the opposite of everything Noitora stands for. Zaraki does not want to die, or even kill people since that brings an end to battle. Unlike Noitora, he actively nerfs himself and makes himself weaker. Zaraki mostly only uses one hand to grip his sword, in comparison to Noitora's 6 hands. When someone is able to cut Zaraki, he gets excited because they're worthy and strong. Meanwhile, Noitora fears for his life, even though he yearns for death. Even when Zaraki refuses to kill him after he's defeated, Noitora insists, succumbing to his despair. Tres Espada Chia Halibel represents the aspect of sacrifice. She holds a deep personal belief in the necessity of sacrifice, considering the foundation of existence. Her actions demonstrate this philosophy, as she is willing to sacrifice her own life to protect her subordinates. We see her saving female Adjushas as the wild nature isn't often nice to them, believing they should fight together in order to increase their chances of survival. Their bonds are born out of necessity, and sacrifice runs deep in those bonds. Her relationship with her tres bestias are unlike other fracciones and their masters. She gets upset when they are taken out by Yamamoto and promises she will avenge them. The sacrifices of her fallen fracciones provide her with the resolve and motivation to continue fighting, as their deaths would be meaningless otherwise. Even though subordinates themselves sacrifice parts of themselves in order to summon Ion, their strongest attack, a beast of destruction. Haribel's designs include shark fins on her spaulders and a shark tooth-like weapon, linking her to the traits of a shark, ferocity, territoriality, and potentially misunderstood nature. She doesn't typically attack people unless provoked, and unlike other hollows, her mouth was sealed. She cannot devour others, and she never did. The shark motive is further emphasized by her powers, which involve manipulating water with precision. Let's talk about her number 3, which interestingly enough is the same number that was held by Neriel, the two main female espadas from the group. Number 3 is often tied to harmony, creation, and divine femininity. Put 3 and 3 together and you get 33, which directly connects to Guanyin, who is the East Asian embodiment of Avalokiteshvara, a compassionate savior who helps those in trouble. She is often portrayed as a beautiful white-robed woman, just like our espadas, white-robed women who help others. The motherhood and femininity theme is strongly rooted in the symbolism of Neliel and Haribel. Both of them confront and act as obstacles to two immature and young opponents. Hitsugaya, the youngest and least polished captain, struggling against the motherly stoic, calm and balanced espada, who represents sacrifice and protection. Noitora is eternally traumatized by Neriel's compassion, innocence and purity. Connecting their parallel even further is the way Nel asks Ichigo for help once the Quincy take over Hueco Mundo and hold Haribel captive. They are the only two espada that survived after Fake Karakura, and they represent the same number, that of 3, that of 33 manifestations of the motherly and feminine figure. Considering that each aspect of death ties to Aizen, and the fact that Haribel never lost to the enemy, but was rather taken out by Aizen, Haribel's hollow hole is located where her womb should be, and Aizen slashes her in that area specifically, unlike his other strikes. His Zanpakuto Kyoka Suigetsu ties into the water motif. Mirror flower, water moon. Water is Haribel's element and the only elemental power among the espada. In Eastern thought and religion, water symbolizes the source of life, just like the womb is the source of life. Water represents genesis, fertility, and sustenance. I simply can't help but see implications of Aizen's attack being a metaphor for him putting a stop to something. He attacked her because he was impatient and or disappointed by the espada, or because he's arrogant and wanted to solo everyone. But the only espada he took out was her. Why? Haribel and Aizen's Zanpakuto releases look exactly the same. Another odd thing that can be coincidence or not. Is there some loneliness because of the absence of a mother in Aizen's case at play here? This is borderline theory territory, but it is interesting. I lied when I said Nel and Haribel are the only two espada that survived, and I'm pretty sure a couple of people already corrected me, commenting about Grimjo. Well, welcome to my Kyoka Suigetsu. Yes, I'm breaking the fourth wall here. But I saved Grimjo for last because, well, 3 plus 3 equals 6. The ones that survived represent destruction and sacrifice, maternal creation versus chaotic destruction, and their numbers align. 3 plus 3, the 33, or the 3 plus 3, the 6, the opposition. I don't know, it all just aligns. Haribel never lost even after numbers 1 and 2 died, and even after Aizen attempted to dispose of her, she survived to protect Hueco Mundo and lead the rest. She's the strongest left. She can't be removed from this world easily, even though Aizen tried. Grimjo's fangs continue to destroy, except this time they're pointed in the right way. And Nel's compassion and innocence connects them all. Being the linchpin of the three of them are some of the few espada that had loyal followers, and they ended up bonding together as a yin and yang in Hueco Mundo's desolate and bleak emptiness. Yin and Yang, in an ancient Chinese concept, describes how seemingly opposite or contrary forces are actually complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world. Baragan's symbolism revolves around the unavoidable and inevitable nature of aging, time, and decay, embodying the concept that nothing lasts forever, not even an immortal king. His appearance as an old man in skeletal form, combined with his ability to accelerate the aging process of anything he touches, directly represents the ultimate power of time over all living things. His primary aspect of death is senescence, meaning old age or the process of aging. He symbolizes the natural, unavoidable march of time and its destructive effects. Baragan's appearance is that of an old man, and his released form is skeletal, akin to a Grim Reaper, an imagery that directly connects him to the end of life. No one, not even a king, can escape the ravages of aging. His resurrection form is that of a human skeleton, so it's safe to say his animal form is that of a human, the king of all animals, the prime predator of nature. Growing old is something humans more than anything else fear and can't help but have in the back of their mind. Growing weaker and more senile, losing memories and strength, and inevitably succumbing to the natural law of the world. Baragan's unique power, Respira, ages and decomposes whatever it touches, from flesh to buildings, directly manifesting his symbolic power over decay and the passage of time. Baragan's entire character embodies the idea that everything that exists will eventually age, decay, and cease to be. His own defeat at the hands of his power serves as the ultimate testament to this, as he, the embodiment of time, was ultimately defeated by time. In the end, his human ego leads him to throw his axe at Aizen, rejecting him till the end, after being uncrowned by him. But he simply ran out of time. His crown fell to the ground and vanished like it never existed. Coyote Stalk primarily symbolizes solitude as his aspect of death, a concept tied to extreme loneliness he felt due to his overwhelming power. This solitude is reflected in his design. His resurrection form, Los Lobos, which features soul wolves representing his desire for companionship. Los Lobos means the wolves. This extreme power in isolation led him to split his soul into two beings, Stark and Lininet Gingerbach, to have companionship. However, this did not fully alleviate his inherent loneliness, as the two are still intrinsically linked to each other. The imagery of the lone wolf is a central theme, as his immense spiritual power previously isolated him from other hollows, forcing him into solitude and making him a lone wolf who was exiled from the pack. A stereotype commonly attributed to the lone wolf is the idea of independence and the rebellious nature. However, in actual fact, wolves have a strong social nature and a sense of family. A lone wolf in reality is one that has been driven from the pack, and in most cases he will seek to join another pack or seek to mate to start a new pack of wolves. Stark's enemy was so intense, his solitude so meaningless, he accepted to follow Aizen and work for him, not because he was subjugated and forced into it like Baragan, not because he was tricked into it like Haribel, not because he was ecstatic about it like Zomari, or because he wanted strength and further evolution like the others. He was already too strong that it hurts him now. He would even rather be weaker just to not be alone. Stark only wanted companionship. He's the only major Espada that has no problem or conflict with another Espada. All of the others clash ideals or dislike one another. Stark is just happy to be there. He's the only one that thinks of the others in his last moments. He represents the scariest part of being a hollow. Once you grow and evolve so much that you reach the top and find nothing there but yourself. Proof that hollows in their nature, biologically and spiritually, are just empty and hollow after all. Stark's position as the #1 Espada, the first in Sosuke Aizen's army, is also seen as a poignant representation of Aizen's solitude, as it highlights his singular, isolating power. the loneliness that Ichigo felt from Aizen's blade. The saddest and most potent emotion is his loneliness at the top. The worst fear is living alone, but even worse is dying alone. Stark has to reconnect with Lilianet in order to reach his full power. He just has to turn back to being alone in order to survive. He clashes blades with Kyoraku, who is the one major character that just keeps on losing people and carrying their burdens, another aspect of solitude and loneliness. They are similar in that they are both slackers and rarely take things seriously, but they are different in that one of them has to see the people he loves leave him one after the other, leaving him alone, and the other only ever knew the alienating and soul-crushing feeling of loneliness. Ulquiorra's aspect of death is nothingness or nihilism. He embodies the concept through his cold, emotionless demeanor, his skepticism towards human feelings like the heart, and his belief that things only exist if he perceives them. Nihilism is based on the Latin word nihil, which means nothing. Ulquiorra's aspect of death is nothingness, derived from emptiness and nihility. Hollowness means having a hole or an empty space inside. It also means something without real significance or value, something empty. Hollows are defined by their name, like I already said. And if there is one single hollow that represents it all, the ultimate hollow, then it will be the one that found no meaning, the one who questions the heart and believe in nothingness. Some types of nihilists accept nothingness. They believe because they accept nothingness that they are able to judge what has meaning or value or what is meaningless. Ulquiorra questions meaning, the heart, and hope. He asks, what's a heart? Not the lump of flesh that pumps blood in living creatures, but what it represents. The heart is the core theme of the Arrancars saga. Hollow masks and holes, humans, Shinigami, Arrancars, Vizard. In the empty world, all fighting for or searching for meaning, except for him, or maybe not. As a nihilist, Ulquiorra believes emotions and human connections are meaningless illusions and cannot be physically seen. He simply cannot see them or understand them. He feels nothing at all. His eyes see everything and his mind is analytical and capable and can only see nothingness and futility in trying to prove otherwise. Ulquiorra sees Ichigo attempting to save Orihime even though he is weak and ineffective against him as ignorance. He simply cannot comprehend the thought behind Orihime even having faith in being saved or believing in Ichigo and her allies. The things reflected in my eyes have no meaning. The things that could not be reflected in my eyes do not exist. He determines what exists and what doesn't. He's a nihilist. He needs evidence, valuable substance, or lack thereof. He saw himself like the lifeless quartz trees of Hueco Mundo, with no color, with no sound, with no scent. It does not interact with anything. It only exists there. He related to that emptiness. It was the closest thing to void that he had ever laid eyes on. Ulquiorra sank into the crystal trees. He embraced them and was embraced by them. He embraced nothingness, became one with nothingness, with the void, non-being. He was able to find something in the end because of Orihime and even Ichigo to a degree, as much as he tried to reject it because he simply could not see it or understand it himself, or because he wanted to see and understand it, and because he couldn't, he tried to reject it. I talked about Grimjaw earlier, about him being the direct foil and antithesis of Ichigo's hollow nature in terms of aggression and violence, and that Ulquiorra is the philosophical rival of Ichigo's everything. If anything, Ichigo is the one who is challenging and questioning Ulquiorra's entire existence simply by his actions and not accepting defeat. Ulquiorra puts a hole in his chest, but he still comes back. Even when Vasto Lord Ichigo defeats Ulquiorra, Ichigo's heart still takes over. He regrets what happened. He feels bad and does not accept victory over Ulquiorra like this. His heart is on full display. Ulquiorra could not grasp the heart, its emotions, its bonds, its unyielding resolve. Yet in the shadows of his soul, he raged against it, and in a silence deeper than that, he yearned for it. His poem goes, envious because I have a heart, gluttonous because I have a heart, greedy because I have a heart, prideful because I have a heart, slothful because I have a heart, wrathful because I have a heart. Because I have a heart, I lust for all that you are. Again, the seven deadly sins metaphor is back, and this time with the devil himself. The devil has a close relationship with the seven deadly sins, since he is the source of sins, and Ulquiorra is the Lucifer of the story. His full name is Ulquiorra Sifar, after all. Ulquiorra saw the heart as the root of pain, of death, of folly, and every shadowed thing. To him it was the hand that guides humanity into the seven sins, the seed of despair, and yet the heart was also the wellspring of meaning. It threatened the stillness of his hollow, nihilistic void, so he turned from it, clinging to nothingness, the only truth he believed he needed. Kurosaki Ichigo, the human he looked down on time and time again, represents the heart. He challenges Ulquiorra's meaninglessness simply by existing and continuing to struggle. Each time he stands up and is strong, a crack in Ulquiorra's world appears. Green is the color of healing, of regeneration, the perfect shade for Ulquiorra, who excels at regeneration. Ulquiorra's releases don't give him any abilities at all, he just becomes stronger and faster. He excels at the fundamental powers that every other espada has. Ironic that he has nothingness to separate him from others, no unique powers, just mastery of all. Unlike other espada who sacrificed their regeneration for more strength, he embraced it. Green is the color of healing, but it is also the color of endurance and stability. Fittingly, number 4 is associated with the color green in numerology. Green is also the color of vision, the eye, and the mending of sights. Very fitting then for Ulquiorra. His green eyes that pierce the soul, his power to restore the very eye he can destroy, and the way his gaze alone speaks the essence of who he is. Green is the color of the heart chakra, and the heart chakra is the 4th chakra, rooted in love, empathy, and emotion. How strange, how ironic, that the very color tied to Ulquiorra is also the one that binds him to the heart he cannot grasp. Black, by contrast, is despair. It cloaks him as the black-winged demon of Hueco Mundo, a creature of darkness where death and fear dwell. Black shields, it intimidates and dominates. It is power and cruelty, emotionless control. Yet Ulquiorra is also white. It was once all that he was, still bearing fragments of that purity beneath the shadows. But too long as he lingered in the abyss and its embrace, he forgot what lay beyond nothingness. White, too, is death and mourning, yet it is also called truth, an unfeeling light that mirrors within him. If you really think about it, Ulquiorra was once a human who died. He became a hollow, and his soul was trapped in Hueco Mundo, and became what he is now. No memories of his past, no vision for his future, and certainly no meaning in his present. As a hollow defined by the cycle of consumption and hunger, Ulquiorra couldn't even open his mouth. Ulquiorra's release is called Murcielago, and that means bats. Ulquiorra is a bat. Bats excel at night. They belong to the darkness. In mythology, bats are associated with darkness and blackness. Aztec mythology associates the bat with death, destruction, decay, and the underworld. Demons are also associated with those concepts. Camazotz is a Mesoamerican mythological figure that symbolizes night, death, and sacrifice, and the dark mysteries of life and death, appearing as a terrifying bat deity in Quechua Mayan legends, meaning the death bats. Demons are also commonly shown with large black wings and a tail, just like Ulquiorra. In addition, demons are known to have horns, and Ulquiorra is the one espada that has horns in every form of his. When Ulquiorra releases, it causes a dark rain to fall on Ichigo. It's a very poetic way to express the fact that Ulquiorra himself is despair, and that he will cause Ichigo and the others to feel despair by his actions and words. We all know what rain means in Bleach, and certainly what rain means to Ichigo. Ulquiorra's heart bleeds black and tears flow endlessly on his face. Traces of Norse mythos can be found all throughout Ulquiorra's design and symbolism. Let's talk about Odin and Sifar. Odin uses spears and javelins. Ulquiorra uses javelins and lances as well. Odin has an iconic horned helmet, just like Ulquiorra's estigma. Both Odin and Ulquiorra sacrificed an eye for wisdom. Odin to gain it and Ulquiorra to share it. Odin hangs himself on Yggdrasil, the world tree, and endures ritual suicide to gain forbidden knowledge and wisdom. Ulquiorra also found thorny white trees and felt connection to their emptiness. He climbed inside, destroyed part of his mask, and that's where he experienced growth as a Vasto Lord. Both Ulquiorra and Odin are extremely intelligent and act as all-knowing and all-seeing figures. They have connection to death and battle. Odin seeks the hidden wisdom of the cosmos, while Ulquiorra grapples with the nature of existence and the meaning of the human hearts. Odin dies by the fangs of Fenrir, the son of Loki. Odin has previously tried to contain Fenrir, but ultimately could not prevent their fateful encounter, battling in Ragnarok and ultimately being overwhelmed by Fenrir. Ulquiorra also died by the hands of someone he tried multiple times to bring to his knees, but was overwhelmed and defeated by him at the end. How much of this is intentional and how much is coincidental? I don't fucking care. It's fun, and it's there for us to see, to find meaning in, or not. The bat is a lunar creature, bound to the moon by myth and shadow, and Ulquiorra is the moon, the silence of the moon, its pale glow. Born from a pit of darkness, Ulquiorra was the moonlight within that void. His attack names are tied to the moon. The new moon is birth, beginnings, rebirth. The waning moon is surrender, release, and death. In the turning of the moon's phases lies Ulquiorra's own tale, his arrival from nothingness, and his eventual return to it. The reserved espada who always kept his hands in his pockets and never understood connection, only ever used his hand to point at the futility and emptiness of the heart, its lack of value and meaning, finally reached his hand out for the heart, for connection. Only he decayed and ceased to exist. Well, that was a quite depressing one. Sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed it, found great value and insight from the time commitment. If you want to support the work I do here, then the best way is through Patreon. This video will most likely get demonetized like always if my shitty luck is still consistent. Over at Patreon I upload manga read-throughs, director's commentaries, monthly recommendations and reviews of the best media I consume, and a lot of other things. Huge thanks to my patrons who generously bankroll these videos, contributing to my bills and groceries. Thanks for watching, stay safe, sexy, hydrated, and until the next one, don't you dare go hollow.